Hello my fellow bass players. So today I'm going to show you exactly how to design a practice routine that will allow you to achieve all of your unique musical goals. Because let's be honest, while there's no shortage of bass tips and tutorials on YouTube, it's almost overwhelming and it's really easy to fall into that trap of just playing different random exercises every day and not really making any actual tangible progress. I know from personal experience that it's really hard to reach the level where you can play all of the music that you love if you don't have a solid practice routine. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in 6 simple steps. Step 1, you need to know which styles of music you want to play, or at least have a few bassists or bands who inspire you. Different styles of music also come with their own skill sets. For example, if you want to be a metal bassist, you should definitely work on fingerstyle and overall speed. If you love jazz, then you're going to have to get really good at improvisation and have a great understanding of jazz harmony. And if you want to play bass like Flea, Victor Wooten, or Marcus Miller, you better get really good at slap bass. So take a moment to think about what music excites and inspires you, and once you figure that out, you can move on to step 2. So the next thing that you've got to do is figure out 3 topics that will allow you to get better at playing that music. For example, if your favorite band is Red Hot Chili Peppers, go and listen to 5 of their songs and think about what Flea is doing on the bass. You're probably going to realize pretty quickly that you're going to have to get really good at slap. You're also going to need to learn a lot of Flea's bass lines and solos and practice them, and you're going to have to get really comfortable using effects like wah and distortion. So your 3 practice topics could be slap exercises, practicing and learning Flea's bass lines and solos, and practicing using a wah pedal. Of course, there's more than just 3 things that you've got to know to play like Flea, but you've got to narrow your practice so that you stay focused, and then once you get really good at those 3 things, you can pick new topics and learn those later. Step 3, you need to create a realistic practice schedule that you know you can stick to in the long term. Figure out which times on which days of the week you can practice and how long your practice sessions will be. If you're a complete beginner or you don't practice very much at the moment, I'd highly recommend starting out with a light practice routine that you know you can achieve. For example, 30 minutes per day, 4 days per week is enough to make consistent progress, and if you manage to stick to that really consistently for a month or 2, you can always add more time or more days per week later. You just really don't want to give yourself an unachievable practice routine that you just give up after a couple of weeks, and before you know it, you're playing just random exercises again. Try to pick a time of day where you know you have a really good chunk of free time. If you're a morning person, then schedule it in the morning. If you're a night owl, then schedule it for nighttime and just make sure you're wearing headphones. And try to make sure that your practice sessions are a minimum of 30 minutes. Alright, now that you've decided on your topics and schedule, it's almost time to start practicing, but first just make sure you do step 4, which is preparing yourself for the practice session. It's really important to have as few distractions as possible, so put your phone in airplane mode or at least turn off the notifications, and close your laptop unless you really need it for something like a metronome or backing track. Also, as much as possible, try to practice in a quiet place with as little clutter as possible, because all of that stuff just distracts you. Practicing is as much about training your mind as it is your fingers, so you've got to make sure that you take these steps so that you can put all of your focus into your playing. Now it's time to start practicing. If you're doing a 1-hour practice session, you can spend 20 minutes on each of your 3 topics. Even though you've identified your 3 broad topics, you might still be wondering exactly what exercises to practice. If that's you, you should definitely check out the Basecamp Patreon page, where you'll be able to access exercises that are all designed for specific topics like slap, tap, double thumbing, and a lot more. I'd recommend starting with a topic that you're excited about that isn't too physically demanding. You're probably not going to want to start your practice session playing classical thump at full tempo, because you want your hands to be a little bit warmed up. Like I said before, practicing is all about having complete focus and being in the moment, and I've found that doing 5-minute bursts of really intense focus with maybe 30-second breaks in between is really helpful. It's really hard to focus on one thing intensely for an hour, but I found through trial and error that I can be in the moment genuinely for 5 minutes. So whenever I'm practicing, I set a stopwatch on my phone and I keep practicing for 5 minutes, and then once the 5 minutes are up, I stop it, I take a little rest, but I don't check my email or Instagram or anything like that, and then I just start the timer again. Doing this allows me to spend a much larger percentage of my practice time in a state of intense focus than if I just tried to practice non-stop for an hour. So try that out and see if it helps you. All right, now we're on to step 6, which is just to be consistent with your practice schedule. Try your best to stick to it as much as you can, but also don't beat yourself up too much if you miss a day every now and then. It's much better to miss a day and just think, oh well, I'll get back to it tomorrow, than to have some huge existential crisis and think, I'm never going to be a good musician, I should just quit and give up. Life is unpredictable. Obviously, some things are out of our control, and so missing the occasional practice session is inevitable. If you're being pretty consistent about your practice routine, make sure that you switch up the topics about every 4 to 6 weeks, or whenever you start seeing diminishing returns from your practice. Try to hit a sweet spot where you feel like you've made some significant progress, but you're also not just getting stuck in a rut, getting overly comfortable doing the same thing over and over again. There's one last optional step, which is to get personalized advice from a mentor. Throughout my bass career, I've always found that I make way more progress if I ask someone with a lot of experience specific feedback on how I can improve. I love helping bassists on their journeys, and if you feel like you could use some feedback or answers to your questions, you can contact me on Patreon and I'd be more than happy to help. That's it for today. Remember, your practice routine is one of the most important steps to playing the music that you love, so make sure you take the time to create a really good one. Thanks so much for coming here and learning with me. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next lesson.